I now call the order the August 16th, 2018 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission to order. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. I'd like to take a moment to explain the order of the meeting, specifically as it relates to the hearing of the applications on tonight's agenda. Each case will be called, and we'll first hear the staff presentation and recommendations. Following this, the commissioners who served on the review committee will present their observations and recommendations. At this point, the applicant will have an opportunity to step forward and provide any comment or additional information about the application. Once the applicant has finished, members of the public who wish to provide comments on the current case may do so, while please noting the time limit of 3 minutes per person. Everyone who steps forward will need to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the sheet located at the podium and limit their comments to the application at hand. Following any public comment, the applicant may be called back to the podium to rebut any public comments and answer questions that the commission may have. Once all questions have been answered, the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate the application, make a motion, have a discussion, and then vote. If any members of the public would like to speak to general preservation topics and not to any specific application, opportunities provided during the audience participation public commentary following the approval of the agenda. Everyone who would like to address the commission may do so and will be asked to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the front podium. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Your comments are valuable to the commission. I would like to now introduce the commissioners. On my right, we have Commissioner Epperson way down there, Commissioner Cope, Commissioner White, Commissioner Keanu, don't tell me, Commissioner Rockland, and Commissioner Hall. Now it's Ms. Thatcher, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Keanu. Here. Commissioner Epperson. Here. Commissioner Beeson.
Here.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Cope.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
There are not. The white agenda is the most current one. Wait a second. No, never mind. I take that back. It's the minutes that are white. You have all of the minutes now, but that is not actually an agenda change, so we'll talk about that in a minute. We're good.
All right. Hearing no objection, the agenda is approved as presented. Do we have any members of the public who would like to come forward and speak for the record? Not seeing anybody. We can move on to unfinished business. Doesn't look like we have any unfinished business, so moving on to F. Hearings, F1, 500 South State. Ms. Thatcher.
500 South 7th is in the Old West Side Historic District. This two-story craftsman features tan or yellow scored brick on the ground floor, full-width front porch, and a prominent chimney on the south side. Has a pedimented front porch roof, side-facing gables, and a wide, shallow shed dormer facing the street and the rear. House was first occupied by Walter and Emma Kurtz in 1923. Walter co-owned Weinberg and Kurtz's contractor supply yard, which was located behind the house at the end of Jefferson Court. I'll show you a cool picture of that in a minute. The house is on the west side of South 7th Street between West Jefferson and Jefferson Court, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to relocate a rear door opening and install several vents. This is the house. The house to the left is on the corner of West Jefferson Street. The area that we're looking at is on the back of the house here. You can see that there's a small porch. That's this porch over here on the right. I wanted to include this photo so that you could see from the street that there's not a whole lot that's visible there. This is the door that they would like to relocate to this wall over here. The milk door would stay and everything else would remain the same. This is a little bump out on the back. You can see on the floor plan it's sort of a pantry. And the door appears to most likely be original to the house, and they would reuse it in the new door opening. Here's my cool illustrations. This is the 1925 Sanborn on the top. This is the house that we're talking about. It was built in 1923. Back here, Jefferson Court used to go through. It doesn't now. And this was all the Weinberg and Kurtz contractor's yard. And this is a 1947 aerial. You can see here's the house that we're talking about. There are a couple new houses here. Jefferson no longer goes through in 1947, but these are the same buildings that you can see on the 1925 Sanborn. And obviously these have been demolished and several new houses have been built on this court in the last 15 years. So the proposal is to take out, these drawings are all in your packet and more, the kitchen door that's on the back that I just showed you photos of and relocate it over here into this pantry area. It's a very narrow space, and really, if you're looking at the layout on the interior of this floor plan, it makes absolutely perfect sense to move the door over here and to get more kitchen counter space or cabinet space or whatever they want to do over there. I was telling the applicants that I'm kind of surprised no one did this 30 years ago or more. But here's the back of the house. Here's the door area that would be infilled. They would use brick that they salvage from the door opening that they're going to create. If they need some infill brick, I've asked that they group it somewhere, maybe at the bottom or the most inconspicuous place possible. If they can't find exactly matching brick, that's all fine. Here's a drawing of what it would look like in its new location. There are a couple of vents proposed also. Normally these are staff approval, but since this application was coming in, there was no reason not to put them on here. This is probably a dryer vent, square. On the foundation, there are 2 roof vents, one on the back porch and one on the second floor. For the Secretary of Interior standards that best apply are numbers 2, 5, and 9. 2 says that the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Number 5 says that distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. And number 9 says that new additions, exterior alterations, or new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for accessibility, recommended is designing new or additional means of access that are compatible with the historic building and its setting. For entrances and porches, recommended is designing and installing additional entrances when required for the new use in a manner that preserves the historic character of the building, i.e. limiting such alterations to non-character defining elevations. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for residential porches, it's appropriate to install a new porch, an entrance on secondary elevations. Installing a new entrance on secondary elevations may be appropriate if it does not diminish the building's architectural character and the design and materials are compatible with the building and the site. You'll notice in the photographs, there's nothing fancy about this door surround. There's no, it's about as straightforward as you can get. There's no fancy brickwork or anything. The milk chute would remain. The rear porch is certainly a character-defining feature of the house, but since they're reusing the historic back door and no historic features of the porch itself will be lost, I do think that this is a reasonable request to make the interior space significantly more efficient, and staff believes that the alteration of the rear kitchen window into it, wait. I'm so sorry, that number 5, just strike that. Staff does believe that the addition of a new door opening and the infill of the existing door opening is appropriate. It meets the Secretary of Interior's guidelines and the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thatcher, who will the review?
Commissioner Cope.
I was on the review committee.
You're solo.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Thatcher on her observations, and I think this is a pretty simple application to be able to get through.
All right, would the applicant please come forward, provide your name for the record, please sign in, and if you have anything to add to the staff report or the review committee, please do so.
Yeah, my name is Chad with Forward Design Build, and this is Anne Marie Clark with Forward Design Build. Anything to add on our part? I think the kind of alteration to the door location is going to have a huge impact on the house. And then the venting that we're obviously locating on the exterior of the house too will have a huge impact in terms of the interior of the space, whether that be an exhaust fan in the upstairs bathroom, a new dryer vent that we're doing so we can properly bring the building to code, and then the new exhaust hood in the kitchen as well for venting the hood range to the exterior. So, anything to add, Anne-Marie?
Nope.
Commissioners have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
It's not explicitly stated in the drawings, but I'm making an assumption that when you create the new door opening, much like the existing state where there's, the width, the rough opening, the masonry opening is 4 brick widths, and it lines up, like the edges line up with the coursing. I'm just assuming that you would do that in the new opening. But
Yes.
can you just state your intention for the record and just
Of course.
let us know what?
I think your assumption is correct. We want to kind of mimic that offset from the corner as the current conditions with the new proposed location. So we
Got
want to basically match exactly the current conditions, but basically rotating it 90 degrees on a perpendicular wall.
And making sure, though, it still makes sense on the interior. It kind of depends where it lands on the exterior with making sure that it gets, you know, when you walk into the inside,
Sure.
that it opens correctly. So of course, we'll take that coursing into consideration, but we need to make sure too that we're able to get properly into the house accurately. So,
Sure, in terms of the function of the interior
Right.
layout. So we will take your consideration into account when we develop that final elevation, I guess is.
Well, what's good is that we're going to be removing a portion of that brick, so we have the opportunity to place the coursing where we need to. So,
Okay. I think.
did I
I was.
overcomplicate it?
I think I just got confused, but
Okay.
the coursing, I mean, you could do half a course or a full course that will give you like 4-inch increments of where you can put the new opening. So I have a feeling like that's probably enough
Yes.
of a, level of detail that you can find a happy place inside
course.
that you find.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, based on the rest of the building, it looks like you'll have to put in a steel lintel. It looks like there's lintels over the window openings existing. Is that true? So then you might have to pull back a little bit on either side to get that lintel in before you pack it back
Right.
in.
Sure.
And then the drawings don't really spell this out. It just says to kind of match, but I'm assuming then you'll do the same wood framing in the inside.
Yes.
It won't be clad with anything. It'll be a wood painted
You're correct.
jambs and all that.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just related to that last discussion, in the demo floor plan, it doesn't show, or maybe I should look at the new plan as well. It doesn't appear to show that milk chute and how close that is to this new opening of the door. So just being mindful that, you know, concern of how much brick around that existing opening next to the new door will be
The
logical.
relationship between the two.
And
Yeah.
yes, you're right. I don't think we did call it the milk chute on our drawings, but we intend to keep that.
It does show up in the exterior elevation.
In the elevation, yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Going, all right, moving on to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? All right, now I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may please be seated.
Thank you.
Make sure you sign in. You got your name in? All right. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Coe?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 500 South 7th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Historic District, Old West Side Historic District, to move a rear door and infill the original opening and install 3 mechanical vents. The proposed work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 5, and 9, and the guidelines for accessibility and entries in porches, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, particularly as they pertain to residential porches.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? I had a quick one. Is there a photo of the foundation? Since we didn't really talk about some of the vents, the only vent that is specific issue to me would be that side one. So it looks like it's brick all the way down.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess the same thing would apply here. Is that how do you course that in there and make sure you're not damaging a lot of brick? And I hope you don't have to fasten the vent from the outside, because we don't want you to drill into the bricks. That's basically a primary goal. So any other comments out there? It's interesting that the wall just goes straight down. No more discussion? All right, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written notification from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you. All right, now we are moving on to the next one. F2, 1113 West Liberty Street. Ms. Thatcher.
This home is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's 2.5-story, clad in glazed brick and sports a clay tile roof. It was constructed in 1917 as a spec home, and Mrs. Tilly C. Clace, widow of Charles, was the first occupant. It was originally numbered 1213 West Liberty. The home features a full-width stone front porch and 6/1 double-hung windows. Single-story rear addition was granted a certificate of appropriateness from the HDC in 2014. That addition was not constructed and the approval expired. This application is for a new design. Site's on the south side of West Liberty between Eberwhite Boulevard and Crest Avenue, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to remove a rear partially enclosed porch, replace it with a 1-story rear addition that contains access to the basement stairs, a pantry, a half bath, and a rear entry. Some of you remember this from 2014. Others do not. This is one of the Old West Side's really, truly most majestic houses. There's just something about that glazed brick with the tile roof that really makes it stand out. Pictures don't do it justice. But this is the area on the back of the house that we're talking about. This is a rear porch. There probably has been a porch here since around the time the house was built. It does show up as a porch on early Sanborns. There's a door on this side, but there's an opening on this wall. There are a couple windows. It's kind of a hodgepodge back here. I believe that there's a better photo in the packet that the applicant provided of the other side. Well, there has traditionally been a porch here. I don't think that it was this one. It was probably made into a mudroom-ish thing at some point, and the cladding doesn't match all the way around and stuff like that. So, and here's that other door that's not in use. It is off the back of the house and stepped in, so right now you don't really see it. These are just some photos from the street, from the sidewalk. This is the east side of the house. This is the neighbor's driveway. This is the house's little lawn. There's a gate back here, and the addition would be behind this. It would be virtually invisible from this side, from this sidewalk angle. And this is the other side of the house. If you look beyond the blue truck, this is the back corner of the house, and you can't see what's back there right now. It's possible that you'll be able to see a little sliver of any addition that goes on back there, but it's a particularly well-hidden rear elevation of a house. This is a 1920s photo from the Ann Arbor District Library. These were built as spec houses, which I think is really cool. There's now a house in between the two, but this was when they were nearly brand new. And the proposal is to put an addition on the back, to take off this red square, which is the back porch, and put on a 2-segment, 1-story rear addition with a little pergola back here over a tiny landing patio area leading to the existing garage. Here's what the floor plan would look like on the back of the house. Right now that little porch is right back here where it's labeled hall pantry, but you can see that it is inset from the corners. The addition is, it jogs here. These are stairs to get down to the basement. And these are the 2 existing openings in the masonry wall. This is the one that's in the porch, and this is the other one that goes down to the basement right now. Finally, they would have an interior connection to the basement. And here's a little new walkway and roof assembly, and this is what it looks like. So the connector is clad in standing seam metal. It has a flat roof. And then as you move back, it steps down a little bit lower, and there is cedar shiplap siding. The windows are double hungs. They are clad. They're compatible in proportion to the existing house windows on the house, but not, or in design, but they don't exactly replicate them. And the pergola is a steel frame leading into the new back door. Here's the new back door with a side light. Shiplap siding. You can see that this is the back corner. This is the back corner of the house, the rear wing. And then we step in 4 inches to the back corner of the proposed addition. and then it steps back out again when the second segment of the addition comes into play. And here's the other elevation. Again, very simple windows on this side. I've already read to you standards 2 and 9. Standard 10 says that new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. The guidelines for additions recommend constructing a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials and so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Also recommended is considering the attached exterior addition in terms of the new use and the appearance of other buildings in the historic district or neighborhood. Design for the new work may be contemporary or may reference design motifs from the historic building. Also recommended is locating the attached exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of a historic building and limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building. From the guidelines for building site, recommended is retaining the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space, and identifying, retaining, and preserving buildings and their features, as well as features of the site that are important in defining its overall historic character. And from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for all additions, appropriate to place a new addition on a non-character defining or inconspicuous elevation and limiting the size and scale in relationship to the historic property. I don't think I have anything else to add. You'll have to ask the applicant that.
That's what drawings say.
So the location of the addition is appropriate and subordinate to the existing house. It's on an inconspicuous elevation and does not negatively impact the relationship between this building, neighboring buildings, and the landscape. And staff believes the proposed work meets the Secretary of the Interior standards, the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, and the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner Cope, Review Committee, can you give us your report?
Again, I generally agree with Commissioner Thatcher on this one, or sorry, Ms. Thatcher. There was one of the guidelines that kind of, stuck out to me when looking at this and kind of in further review. I think we can save that for discussion, but just removing historic material from the home. But the shed itself is, well, the back porch, I guess, it's really not a character-defining feature to the home. I think the home itself is really just an amazing place, and it's never going to be seen really from the street. It's only going to be like people visiting the home will see the new addition. I think it's a great project. It'll enhance the house a lot.
All right, would the applicant please come forward, provide your name for the record, and please sign in. And if you have any additional comments to the staff report or review committee, we much appreciate it.
I can't write and talk at the same time, sorry.
No.
I'm Dick Mitchell. And I do have a few things to add in answer to Mr. Rockland's question. Yeah, we are going to have a vegetated roof on both of the flat roofs. The siding material on the connector, the vertical metal, is what we decided to show because it's our default position. What we're pursuing and would most like to put there, but we don't know if it's possible yet from a budget point of view, is a terracotta rain screen. The clay tile roof and the terracotta would be a good match, and we realize if we did that, we would need to come back to Ms. Thatcher and make her aware, and she may ask us to come back here, which we'd be willing to do, but we're actively pursuing that right now. The first supplier did not want to take on a job this small, so we're looking for others, but it would be an appropriate system. And the only other thing, the door and window system at the rear is a Hope steel metal system. And I didn't want you to think that system that you see is double hung.
And the one in the bathroom is double hung.
It is. And both of those that you see on that side elevation, then there's another one on the west side.
Yep.
To the left is a double hung.
And what material?
It's, they're wood windows, and we haven't selected them yet. I think gel wood.
With exterior?
Wood.
Just all wood?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
I have a
Go ahead.
few. So you made mention about the material, the connector, but the southernmost portion would be the wood siding.
It would, yes.
And then there's a green roof and corrugated roof over the kind of canopy.
That's correct. Yep.
And it's, I think somewhere I read that there was a gable roof, but all the drawings show a
Yes.
flat roof.
Yeah.
I think the site plan has a gable roof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it is flat.
Okay.
That was a mistake. Giraffe did the drawings and did a better job of describing it than I did verbally. I mentioned a gable roof, which we played with for a while and
okay, but
walked away from.
okay, so it's all flat
It
roof,
is all flat.
and then variety of materials. Okay, and the other question I had was on the enlarged floor plan of the addition, so 1/4-inch scale plan.
Mhm.
It shows a 4-inch offset
Mhm.
on either side, but it looks as though it's really 4 inches to the stud or the framing, not so much the finished face of
It's
the
intended to
addition.
be 4 inches clear.
Okay. There's a little bit of
Yeah.
confusion there.
So there'll be 4 inches of the original exposed brick.
Of the brick, the glazed
Yes.
brick. Okay,
Yeah.
'cause in the elevations, it also looks like it's only one white
Yeah.
clear. So,
It's actually half a brick is all it ends up being.
okay. Yeah, it looked pretty narrow, so I just wanted to
It
get some
is.
clarification on that.
It's constrained on the west side because of the existing location of the existing door opening. On the east side, there's more room to move inward. And we could create a bigger reveal there if we wanted to.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is more of a discussion item or if it's still right here, but the clearance that you're talking about near that existing opening,
Mhm.
it's almost as if I'd prefer it to be kind of the opposite condition. I don't know
I
if,
would too.
I'd have to check,
Yeah.
someone would have to check the code, but if you're removing the door, it doesn't seem to be like there would be not much of an issue of providing operational clearance or something like that, unless I'm missing.
Yeah, I'm
some
not
other
sure what you're
detail.
asking. Yeah.
Maybe there wouldn't be trim. Yeah, is there trim? on it?
Yeah, is there, well, it's a brick wall.
It's a brick
No.
corner, there's no wood trim or anything.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering why that wall couldn't come in a few more
There's-
inches.
There is about 10 inches to work with there of brick before you get to the west jamb of the door opening. And
The
that
masonry
door
opening?
is being removed and stored and will just become an opening. So we have that 10 inches of brick to
So,
engage.
so there would be 10, you're saying there's 10 inches of exposed brick on the interior?
No,
or
right now,
total?
maybe if you could go to the exterior photograph, and I think there was one that might show it.
Maybe the bottom left.
Yeah, you can just barely see it in the lower left, right there.
There's a photo.
There's a brick plus. So,
Oh, it's in the packet.
Looks like
Yeah.
16 inches.
and we're using a 2x6 stud system, so then that leaves us about 4 inches of exposure If we
On the
keep that
exterior.
existing, yes.
But on the interior, as currently designed, how much brick is exposed?
Oh, you won't see any of the brick at that point. The rest of the brick will be left exposed to the house, but at that connector, because we have 10 inches to play with and 6 inches of wall, the inside face is going to be flush with the wall going down the steps, and the outside face will have 4 inches of exposure.
Well,
No,
I don't
think so.
wanna-
The drawings are showing a different condition. Yeah, so I think
So
that's why,
there's-
why there's some confusion there, but
I
I think
don't
we can probably.
wanna-
It's really
Dwell on it
tight.
too much,
It's really
but
tight
it's-
right there. I did notice that, the heavy material walls.
Go to that plan.
Yeah, no, that's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Looks like about 16 inches, like it almost looks like on this photo that I'm looking at here, where it's maybe 2 brick widths. If you look at this one,
Yeah.
it's maybe, there's 16 inches,
Not that narrow.
so 4 inches on one side and then 8 inches of wall. And then you got 4 inches on the other side. I think the drawing, the floor plan does make it look like you have a lot of room inside that you can move the wall interior. But I think if we just did that, if it's really
Yeah.
4 inches, 8 inches, and then you've got 4 inches. So I think it's confusing in the drawing, but.
Okay,
it's-
sorry.
Well,
That's okay.
So I'm specifically curious about the conditions at where the wall meets the brick and it meets the foundation wall, because there's definitely a lot of change going on there.
Yeah.
And how you match it with metal standing seam is going to be really quite tricky. Even if you did the terracotta, it would be pretty tricky on how you weatherproof that. So is there any details or ideas of how you're going to manage
I don't
that?
have the detail, and I'm not worried about it on the brick, but you're right, at the stone foundation, which sits out from the brick, there's gonna have to be coping of the material to go around the stone. We wouldn't cut the stone, but it's gonna be tricky, you're right.
And so there's no plan either now to like put a reglet into the brick running vertically to join the standing seam. You're gonna have to try and figure out how to attach that standing seam, probably at the joints of every brick, and then find a clip.
There's gonna have to be something to engage it at the brick.
Yeah.
So we drill in at the joints and slide it in, but the idea would be that it wouldn't be a trimmed detail. It would go flush.
Yeah.
Where it gets tricky, as you say, is down
Is
at
down
the
bottom, yeah.
base, yeah. Because the stone protrudes 2 to 3 inches
Yeah.
out from the brick.
So that has some tricky details that
It does.
we don't really see here, and
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to feel good about the resource staying, but you're the homeowner, so I know you generally
And-
care about it, and you're the
yeah.
architect, so.
Be careful, yeah.
But yeah, those are the conditions. I can tell that we're bringing them up to help you too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that they attach a standing seam strip and then have cleats into that. And what you do down below may have to be a whole separate piece or something,
I know.
but
Yeah.
all that needs to be weatherproofed.
Mhm.
That's pretty tricky. All right, any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit more about the steel pergola? And specifically, I can see it, it's just very minimal, so like in elevation
it's
and in
very
plan, it's like
minimal.
almost not even there.
It's 2 tubular steel arches that are mitered and welded. One next to the house and one sitting out from the house. And then just a simple cord, and then they are connected with another tube that carries the corrugated deck. And the deck overhangs it a little bit. It's just meant to be utilitarian and a simple,
The deck is like a metal, what's the deck?
it's a metal deck,
A metal deck,
yeah.
not corrugated metal deck.
It says corrugated.
It is corrugated metal deck,
yes.
okay. Like a U, like an
Yeah.
S profile, or like the angular kind of profile? Like it's S's like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's like a sine wave.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And then do you need I see that it's very close to the existing garage. Do you need to dig a foundation for the posts, or?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
and how will that impact the garage at all, or?
I don't think so. It's a good question, but we'll have to pour right up to the garage with 2 sonotube bases for the 2 columns. Yeah.
Where are the arches on the? You mentioned arches on the,
Yeah,
am I missing those?
If you can go to the side elevation, it might be
Flat
better.
arch.
See, the first one is engaged right up next to the house. And then the
Oh,
second
that,
one,
easy, okay,
yeah, right there.
yeah,
So they go up and over.
yeah. That's- Just referring to that, okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll move to the public hearing. Are there members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? All right. I'll now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may please be seated. Thank you. And would any commissioners like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Hall.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 1113 West Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a one-story rear addition as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for additions and building site, and the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for additions.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Anyone?
I think it's a really terrific project.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, I was trying to look at the secretary guidelines, specifically about designing new additions in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. I think this pretty clearly does that. We already talked about how it's on the back side, and what was another one that I thought was here, the not recommended about removing or radically changing buildings and their features or site features which are important in defining the overall historic character of the property, so that as a result the character is diminished. And I don't feel that these additions or this addition diminishes the character of the building at all, and I feel like it kind of highlights a small little feature on the back and kind of, in a way, exemplifies or brings out the historic building even more as a result. Especially as with the standing seam, which I hope you're able to keep. I think that would be a lot better than the terracotta in my mind, but yeah. Just as that contrasting feature to it, especially as a segue element to the back. Any other comments?
I'll take one.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to mention that, you know, we talked about the house, and I want to just say I appreciate that the homeowners are using very high-quality materials for this addition. The windows are going to be really high quality, and the cladding materials, and it sounds like the actual structure itself. So I just want to commend the homeowners on that.
Yeah. My own recommendation is that you water the sedum roof more than you think you should at the start. Mine died really fast. Well, I should have watered it. It was my fault. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those let's vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written notification from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you. All right, now we're moving on to G, new business. We have a sign ordinance in front of us, G1. Ms. Thatcher, I suspect you have things to say about it.
My fellow city planner, Chris Chang, is here, along with Jill Baum from Giffords-Webster. And they're going to tell you a little bit about the new sign ordinance. I haven't gone over this draft either, so it's also new to me. But I've asked them to sort of pull out the things that might affect the historic districts the most, either on residential or commercial properties. So take it away.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chris Chang with the City of Ann Arbor. We've been working with Giffords-Webster, Jill Baum, I believe.
I've known Jill for like 30 years, and I've been doing it continuously.
It probably happens all the time. So we've been updating the sign ordinance. We did present it to you probably approximately 6 months ago. We have made some updates that Jill will go over tonight and highlight some of the changes. By no means is this a finished product. We're looking for your feedback tonight. We have presented it to the Planning Commission. We also plan on taking this to the DDA for their comments, also to the sign consultants and to the general public, all in the next month. At that time, we'll start putting together our comments and start to get a more formalized draft that we can start presenting and going for approval through Planning Commission and City Council. And with that, I will have Jill go through some of the changes that we've made since we've last met.
Good evening, Jill Bain with Giffords Webster. So I have a bunch of, I want to have my notes here and the ordinance, and I might be taking a couple little notes as you're all talking too. So I will give you just a brief overview of the working draft, and just to reiterate, this is a working draft, and some of the things that have been, that we've discussed as we've gone through the process are the need to really update the organizational structure. So you'll see that the structure is improved. We think it's a little bit more logical in its flow. You'll see a much larger intent statement, and there's a couple of reasons for that. It's really important that the sign ordinance give a good outline of the compelling and important governmental interests. So why are we regulating the signs? Particularly because of free speech issues. We want to be really clear what our purpose is here. So you'll see the different sections now include mitigating traffic problems, including supporting public safety, improving community character and quality of life, still allowing for economic development and property values. So those are two things that are also important that we need to be aware of. Avoiding nuisance-like conditions, identifying properties for emergency response and for wayfinding purposes, and protecting the right to receive and convey messages. So that's the sort of the highlights of the intent section, and it's quite thorough, trying to draw a line between being overly wordy, such as to the point where it just becomes too much for people to even look at, but really wanting to make sure that we hit on all the things that are important to convey. You'll also see that the prohibited signs section was updated and now expressly states, for example, that inflatable signs are prohibited. So we wanted to make some of those things clear. We've also added a construction of language section. That type of language is found in your zoning ordinance since this is separate. It also supports that and clarifies how words and phrases are interpreted, and that's a good thing to have in your ordinances. In terms of the general provisions, there's been a slight modification to the sign area and how that's measured, just to be clear that it is measured by the rectangles enclosing the extreme limits of the writing or other messaging. And we'll have illustrations where we did have some in there to show how that's applied in a variety of circumstances. Sign illumination has been updated to be current with industry practices, where we measure illumination in relationship to background or other ambient light conditions, such that an illuminated sign could not exceed 0.3 foot candles above background lighting levels. And that makes the signage more compatible. Then it's understanding that there's a context to illuminated signs, and where they're placed should be measured in that way. And then addresses, just specifying that addresses up to 12 inches in height and in residential districts and 24 in non-residential districts don't count towards the sign area. When we get to the permanent sign section, you'll see that all of the information there has been put into a table. We hope that that is easier for people to understand as well as for staff to enforce. And through our discussions with staff, one of the big changes to the ordinance is to remove the concept of message units. It can be complex for people to understand what that means for their sign, as well as a little bit confusing on the enforcement end as well. And it's really something that most communities don't do. And so we're going to be regulating it by area, and that should be sufficient. We've also updated interior window signage. It's maintaining the limit of 25% of the total window area, but one thing that it does allow is the application of some etched or applied lettering in the lower 8 inches of any ground floor window. And that's sort of as a bonus, something that's not currently in the ordinance, and hopefully will promote higher quality, more permanent signage in window spaces. Then we get to the main, sort of the biggest changes, and that's regarding temporary signs. This is updated due to the Supreme Court case of Reed versus Gilbert that really left a mark with making a lot of communities have to update their sign ordinances. In particular, so that we're treating all temporary signs the same, regardless of what it's for. all temporary signages must be treated as they're content neutral. So we're not looking at what the sign says, we're just saying, here's how big it can be. And so for all uses, up to 3 square feet of temporary freestanding or wall signage is permitted at all times. And there's additional allowances for other temporary signs. Freestanding signs would have a 64-day time limit that could be replaced again with a different sign. Wall signs would have a 28-day per year limit with one display period not to exceed 14 days. If buildings or lands are offered for lease or for sale, the time limit for temporary signs would be for the duration that the property is available for sale or for lease. And that's something that I'll finish up the end of it, but we'll come back to that. Non-conforming signs, we just added a minor clarification there. And then the permits, liability insurance, authorized sign erectors, appeals and variances, penalties enforcement, most of those are the same language that you already have. There have been some new definitions added and some deleted, just to be more current with new signs and new technologies, and removing some content-based elements. As Chris mentioned, we will be meeting with the DDA on September 12th. And October 4th, we will have 2 meetings. We're going to have earlier in the afternoon, we're going to have a meeting, sort of a focus group, if you will, with sign contractors, get their feedback and input into the issues that we've been raising. And then following that, we'll have a public meeting, an open house meeting. And then we're anticipating to have a final draft by January, February of next year. So that's sort of the overview. I know that you'll have questions about the temporary signage. The Planning Commission raised that with us as well on Tuesday night when we met with them. And so I think that'll still be something that's going to continue to evolve. So we obviously want your input on that, but I'll open it up to any other questions that you have or any other feedback that you'd like to give us.
What are your temporary proposals now for your the political signs? It's like some of them are banners, some are signs.
Right.
I mean, what do you have now that you're thinking about?
Well, right now what we have proposed would be what you see in the ordinance. And so that would be the, on page 16 of that
16
draft.
I was on the 8. You say 16?
Page 16.
Okay.
And it's section 8 on temporary signs. And so you'll see that it goes by use, so single-family residential in that table, multiple-family residential, non-residential uses in residential districts, and non-residential uses in all other districts. Recognizing that those uses would have a greater need for signage, typically larger, more on roads that are more heavily traveled. And so you'll see what the differences are there between the maximum area of signs by type, so either a freestanding sign, like a sign that you would have on a post in the front yard, or a wall sign, so maybe a banner of some sort.
I have a question. If you have a banner and you have it on a fence, and the fence is about 4 feet high, how wide can it be? Let's say it can't be any more than 4 feet tall. Mm-hmm. How wide can it be?
It could be, well, it depends on where you are, but if you were in, say, on a commercial property, a wall sign would be 32 square feet. I think we would consider that.
Pardon me?
32 square feet, so 4 by 8.
Okay.
And I think that's a fairly
That's nice
standard
size.
banner.
No, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And that could be for 28 days per calendar year, but no greater than 2 weeks at a time.
Well,
basically,
a
it's
political one,
2-week periods.
you want to probably have it out there for 45 days, 30 days to 45 days. That's 6 weeks to 4 weeks. You said how many weeks?
2 2-week periods, so 4 weeks total.
Well, we can adjust that to 6 weeks.
You think that's too
short.
It's too short.
I mean, for November, what we're going to have signs up, and I think they should be up at least starting in middle of September, October, and November 2nd, or whatever it is, the first week in November.
So Bob, if you look a little farther down, item B says that you can have 3 square feet at any time, all the time.
Okay.
So that's your,
Where's that at?
that's your vote for Bob sign that you can leave year-round if you want.
No, I don't want to do that.
Page 16, item D.
16D?
Yep.
I think that what
That's wonderful.
What really
I
pertains.
withdraw the situation, I withdraw that now. This
Oh,
will
all right.
work.
I think really with the signage that pertains to us specifically is, you know, in historic districts, rental properties, banners, housing signs that are permanently on people's houses, wall signs. I like the limitations that you guys have put on that as far as sizing wise goes. Just because Ann Arbor has so many rental companies and so many properties, is there, you know, it looks like single family residential, you know, 3 square feet, that's not a huge sign. I know a lot are gonna have to come down when this goes into effect. But as far as like wall signs and banners go, you know, the landlords that are hanging these huge banners, they're advertising those for lease. In Ann Arbor, you know, the leasing period is 12 months a year.
Right.
On any house. In the city ordinance, I think, as far as student rentals go, once September 1st hits, you can release for the following year, October or November 1st.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
The Planning Commission talked about
So
that too.
so that keeps those banners up on all these properties all over the place all the time. And I think specifically to the historic commission or historic districts in Ann Arbor, most notably the 4th Ward, is the neighbors are having issues with these banners on all these houses all the time.
Right.
I don't know if there's a way to restrict that at all, because there's always going to be, the landlord will say, well, it's for lease. It's for lease. And you can have for lease and for sale signs through this up for the duration, that the period of time that it's for sale or lease. So it's just something to consider. I don't know if I'm making a solution more than just an observation. And those banners and large signs on the houses in our districts are also, you know, taken away from character defining features, and they're also not being mounted properly. There's screw holes all over houses and bricks getting pounded through throughout our district. So maybe, I don't know if there's anything specific to the historic district, or this is just Ann Arbor as a whole, or if there could be, in addition to historic properties in Ann Arbor, a separate ordinance that would follow along through this.
I think definitely the issue of where signs are mounted can be addressed in the ordinance.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to add. I do think with considering multiple family residential uses, so buildings that are homes that are subdivided maybe into different apartments, we don't really include a wall sign for that. As I'm looking, freestanding signs, they can have up to 16 square feet for a freestanding sign, 1 sign, or 2. That would be a total of 32 square feet. And maybe there should be an accommodation also for a wall sign that's the smaller size.
Yeah.
That would preclude those banners from going up.
Yeah. I think there's one on Main Street that's now leasing, that's been there for 15 years. And it's hideous. That's just a consideration, I guess.
If you made a 1-foot tall sign, you could make it the width of the entire lot at 32 square feet for some lots.
Well, but only one sign can only be, like, one sign can be a maximum of 16.
But they could put them next to each other.
Oh, I see what you're saying. See, people will figure out ways, they always do.
So, Jill, there's no reference to the Historic District Commission anywhere in here right now, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that would be a great thing to add, either to, it doesn't have to be regulations, but
Right.
it could say properties in historic districts must also adhere to
I think that's a good
the,
add.
you know, the Ann Arbor design guidelines and the standards and guidelines followed by the
Yeah,
commission,
what
or
about
something like
staff
that.
approval? So we make
Well,
sure.
they would all need a staff approval. Every single one of these will need a staff approval.
Staff approval.
Yep,
Okay.
every single site.
Every rental property
Yep,
will have to come in and
and that might be a good thing to throw in there, too.
a signed permit.
Yes. Staff approval.
Approval is required. A certificate of approval.
Delegate
is
that.
Sign every word, sign. Sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, so if you added in there that a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Commission is necessary for every sign.
Yeah, and that would include installation, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because that's the biggest issue with signs, and that
But
is
staff can
our
approve,
problem.
but staff
as
can approve
Historic
those,
Commission, right?
but staff can approve those.
Staff can approve, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's worth a walk by to make sure that the landlords aren't just blasting holes in cement
That's true.
brick buildings with
Yeah.
huge hammer drills to put big plastic anchors in, you know?
I agree.
will sign permits be required for temporary signs?
That was something that came up the other night at Planning Commission too, and I think that that's something that we'll need to continue discussing. There's some level of signage that you don't want to be limiting, replacing a restriction or a potential restriction on someone expressing their free speech. And yet, when we don't have a permit, it's harder to keep track of when things are going up.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some balance there between those things.
So real quick question. For a real estate sign, like a for sale sign, is that going to require a permit to do that? To put a sign in front of somebody's house?
I think that'll be something that we have to discuss. It
Okay.
isn't typically, because that can be a very frequent permit that's coming and going.
How do they handle that today?
You don't
How do they
have
handle it today?
preference today on those,
No,
no.
you don't have to today. I'm just wondering if, you know, I'm a realtor, and
Yeah.
it's more of a personal.
But
I
if we
can
don't
have to
have
go
to
get
do
a
it to-
sign permit, just like I have to go get a permit for a drone to do droning in Ann Arbor, you know? That's like a 90-day waiting period because of the airport proximity. Tough.
I guess I would advocate for the notion, something to be added under the character and quality of life, and we could put that somewhere in there about the historic districts.
I agree. I was just looking at
Yeah.
that and I was thinking the same thing.
I think it
We
would
should
fit
add
somewhere
that
in there.
Specifically.
But in terms of like the regulation part of it, I don't know where that would fit.
I think the regulations are fine, size-wise. I picture everything, temporary banners up, and 3 square feet's not very big.
Is there anything about how temporary signs are freestanding or mounted?
I don't think we do yet.
Okay,
And
that would be a good
when,
one.
you were talking about the mounting them on a fence, that's probably something that we should address.
Well, it's a
what that
temporary
would be.
sign.
Temporary sign,
It's a
right.
temporary sign up like a banner.
I'm
It
thinking,
has those specifications, but they cut down after the election.
I'm thinking of the guy who, on about 30 properties, sunk 2 4x4s or 6x6s in concrete to put his for rent signs on in front.
And that's kind of what I was
It's not very
talking
temporary. He
about,
takes
is
the
those-
signs up and down, but it's
those-
not temporary.
Right.
They're not temporary.
Yeah.
In Ann Arbor, they're constantly for lease. So like, that's just a workaround. Maybe there's something you're going to get blowback from the landlords on that.
And coincidentally, does the city know if any of their signs would not follow the sign ordinance? Like I could think of Fuller Pool right now, it's a giant banner,
We have not
it's Fuller
discussed that.
Pool.
We may be exempt. We're exempt from many of
You're
our
exempt.
roads. Many of them, not all of them.
Absolutely.
Not all of them. We are not exempt from the historic district chapter.
Oh, that's
but many other ones we are.
But we could be overruled by city council.
Yeah, like the school, those are good ones. It's a small banner. That's 8 square feet at most.
But how long was it out there?
Next one.
It depends if I could reach it. That's another, yeah, that's funny.
Under section 7, letter C, the etching in the
Yes.
window. I'm sort of curious about that in terms of etching into a historic resource of a storefront or so on, and how that might impact historic properties. And just being careful there about what we,
Right.
yeah.
That they shouldn't be doing that?
Yeah,
basically?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be
I
etching
assume that's
into,
what you meant, yes.
Yeah.
regardless of how small,
Right.
yeah. And then it's etched, and then the next tenant has to take it out because it's permanent, you know, and
Right.
it was a historic material and so on.
What page is that on, Evan?
It's on 14.
Page 14.
Excellent point.
So a painted letter then would be easier to remove and not as permanent of a,
Yes, some
No
sort of
historic
change.
materials should be
okay.
permanently altered.
altered by,
Right.
yeah, etching just scares me a little.
And that includes glass.
Yeah, it
A
includes
glass
glass,
etcher is
absolutely,
gonna
yeah.
come in and try to etch on 100-year-old glass.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work out very good for them.
Exactly.
Got it.
But you bring up a point, though, about like, if it's commercial properties and they're changing hands, and if they're etching into glass, some marketing information, and then the next tenant is gonna have to change out all the storefront glass.
Yeah, I
Usually-
think we should change that letter, because that's not really what the intent was, and so I think that may be not clear. So we
Okay.
should just probably remove that completely. I think
Et-
allowing
glass
the affixed
etching.
letters, applied letters, I
Yeah,
think we
sure,
should
right,
say
yeah,
it
yeah,
as
yeah.
applied, because that covers really what I think we mean.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
removable.
In a commercial situation, even if it's etched, a new tenant comes in, there's gonna be a build-out allowance for that tenant, and, you know, the landlord will usually take care of that stuff. So,
Yeah, but if you
and
can
thinking like
avoid-
inside
But,
Carytown or
if it is
something.
old glass, though, you don't want to have to
Yeah,
have that be removed just for
yeah.
8 inches of lettering.
Is there a definition of marquee signs somewhere? Oh, here, in the
I think
back.
we do. I think that was one of the ones we added.
Oh, any sign attached to a marquee. Permanent structure.
We have our own regulations on marquee. Is that all, are all our sign regulations gonna change then with this as well?
We'll probably have to
Well,
change
this is
some
just
of
an
our
updated
language.
version.
Okay.
Marquee, yeah, there's marquee.
Permanent
definition.
structure, other than a roof, awning, or canopy that is attached to, supported by projecting from, and located over the entrance to a building.
May
Does
not
that-
be over an entrance.
Other than a roof, awning, or canopy.
Yeah, like some of our signs that are marquee may not be over an entrance.
What would that be? What's an example of a marquee? So do you consider the state and the Michigan theaters to be a marquee rather than a canopy?
That's a marquee.
It's a marquee,
But what's the difference, I guess? So the Arc
It's
is building a
not-
new canopy,
right.
but
I think
we
it's
used
the
to call
part,
it a marquee. Structure other than a roof, awning, or canopy.
Does it
It's
depend on
the-
the type of business, or no?
well,
That's
there's
kinda
an
what I'm
accommodation for
questioning.
places of assembly, and those are the only ones that are permitted to have the marquee sign.
So maybe that, if that's added to the definition, that might,
It is, we wouldn't put it in the definition, because that's more of a regulation of it. It is in the table of the permanent signs. I think that, you're right, I think we should look at that a little bit more, that definition.
Yeah.
It's supposed to distinguish between merely an awning, which we wouldn't want necessarily signs on.
Right.
But I think what we're missing is that part about the vertical projection of it. I mean, we talk about being projecting, but I think we're presuming that you have a picture of an awning in mind, or a marquee in mind, like, everybody knows what it is, but
Yeah.
I don't know that we're defining it as well as we
Yeah,
could.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Do you
that
have,
200 square feet is a lot of area,
yeah,
especially if it's a single-sided sign. That's a, 20 by 10 foot sign
I guess one
over a door.
more question, I guess, of mine, just because I can think of 20 signs or places that I could just picture that are already not conforming with this. The 10-foot height on non-residential uses in all other districts. Maximum area, 50 square feet. I mean,
They're grandfathered in.
they're grandfathered in, the ones that are there now. But you look at, like, just the first example I can think of is Quality 16. You know, their sign is like the smallest little sign, and have no idea that is back there. But I think that, well, never mind. That's in a different
Out of the
township.
city.
It's not in the city. Never mind.
okay.
Sorry. I think Jack's Hardware will stay. those places. Anything that's the existing will stay.
Yeah, if it's a permanent sign, yes, it would be.
Yeah.
If it meets the,
'Cause
or
10
if it's
feet's
legally
really
non-conforming,
low.
it would be. I'm sorry?
Like a maximum height of 10 feet for a, you know, a
Yeah.
drive-by on Stadium or Washtenaw is really, really low.
If a gas station gets taken over by another gas station, will the non-conforming sign be allowed to stay? Or will it
Yeah,
have to-
Yeah,
gas
it's
station
a
signs.
It's a permanent sign. It's-
Okay.
it's in- If there's a brick there, the only thing they're doing is changing.
Oh, that's for temporary.
The
I'm looking
symbol,
at permanent.
but they're just putting that, they're taking out the,
Permanent height.
But it says no non-conforming sign shall be changed to another non-conforming sign. So if you have a Shell gas
Exactly.
sign that's 15 feet tall and Mobile Gas buys the gas station, they would have to
Put
install
mobile
a new sign, because the new sign would be non-conforming, and it says that's
Typically,
not
the
allowed.
panel
yeah.
can
But
be
if you
replaced.
replace it with mobile,
No non-conforming
that's
sign
what it
shall be
says right here.
changed to
8
another
foot.
non-conforming sign.
And read number 2 as well. No non-conforming sign shall.
Have any,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Projecting and hanging signs, maximum 30 feet above grade.
but there's
And I
a,
think that's where you
but
get
there
into
was a
the
station
businesses.
on, well, they don't have the ordinance yet, but there was a station on Platt and Eisenhower. It turned out that it was a PBBP sign, and now it's an Exxon mobile sign. And the only thing they did is just put their sign in. The fixture stayed.
Right, so that's what I was questioning. If that happens and the sign is more than 10 feet tall, it sounds like it would have to be replaced by a new conforming sign, which is, I mean, that's why you have a sign ordinance to try
I
to.
think, and this we didn't change. Do you allow
Yeah,
that
and
now?
I would say,
feel like you-
the ones that I've seen that have come in for the gas stations, quite a few of them have received height variances. So I think, I can't answer all of them, but quite a few of them actually have variances that allowed them to exceed the height.
At the
but-
big intersections, I'm
Yeah,
presuming, yeah. So those will be allowed to stay.
yes,
Yeah.
yep,
Do you have any gas
the
stations
variances
in
run with the land.
Districts?
And you tend to allow to change out of sign panels?
There's the
Yes.
gas
Yeah.
station?
We
So
have,
if it
I don't
was
think
a,
so. Sorry, I'm thinking about medical marijuana right now.
Ah.
if you do have a non-conforming BP sign and it changes to a mobile and they just change out the panel,
Yes.
that's permitted. It's the same use.
Oh,
If
that
they-
seems
if they have the
contradictory.
variance.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that maybe means
Ask for a
another
variance.
different kind of sign completely that is non-conforming. So whether the first sign was there because it was non-conforming because it was too tall, you couldn't take down that one and put up another one that was too wide
Right.
because that's non-conforming. I think that's what that really
Well, I
means.
see it as, okay, it says something, and they're taking out the panel, you know, and it just changes the words or symbols used to display it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that has
We
not.
can clean that
we
up.
can clean
That's
it up
not
so
what
that
you
it's.
intended to do.
Well, that hasn't changed, so that's your current ordinance.
Uh-huh.
So I defer to Chris to see how that's been addressed, handled administratively.
Or not handled
That's
administratively.
correct.
All right, any other,
It does, well, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I had a question about the 0.3 foot candles, the
Yes.
illumination. So that's a new, was there something before about how bright the signs could be? Or is that,
Let's see. The previous ordinance, I don't know that we
Yeah,
really addressed
it's
illumination so much.
5D6 on page 7.
Yeah,
I'm
It
just curious, like,
allowed-
I don't know
yeah.
what 0.3 foot is that,
yeah, you.
like, what was the intention there, I guess?
Yeah, the
And
current
then-
ordinance allows illuminated signs to, it says shall not emit more than 5,000 nits in full daylight and 100 nits between dusk and dawn.
All right, again, I
So,
don't-
again, foot candles and nits, who
pretty
knows how to
bright.
do that? Foot candles are easier to measure
right, okay.
with easily obtained equipment for that. That doesn't really recognize the context of where a sign is in
Right,
relationship to what else is going around. So
Yeah.
signs in well-lit commercial areas
Need to be bright.
could be brighter.
Yeah.
Signs that are in residential districts or closer to residential districts should not be brighter.
So after it's
so we don't wanna-
installed, someone's gonna measure the
output.
Yeah, like the relative output of the sign.
Yeah, I mean,
Let
or if
me
there's a
know when you're
complaint, and it
hiring
seems
for that.
excessive,
It's-
it's probably more gonna be on
It's gonna be
the.
Let me know when you're hiring for that
Complaint
job.
Driven,
If
okay,
if
so
someone
that sign's
feels like,
bright,
gee, this-
someone will come up there and,
Yeah,
The sign people.
all right.
yeah.
Once
And
you
that's
get your
common
permit,
too with, we see that in communities. You notice it especially with, well, glare is a big
Sure.
issue. So if someone puts up a light fixture and they haven't put down the illumination, you can see the bare bulb and you're like
Yeah.
completely blinded by that. Someone's gonna call and complain about that. I have done
Well,
that
the new
before.
signs that going up around town are bright, so it'll be interesting to know. I can't tell whether or not if they're 0.3 foot candles brighter than the
Right.
surrounding, but
That's what happens.
Right.
I'm glad that it's in there.
So it will be, and if you
Yeah.
see ones that you feel like seem much brighter than everything else, then that would be one that you would call on and say, can you measure this? Because it doesn't seem right.
Right, yeah. I think that we've approved things where they've said it's on a dimmer.
Yeah.
And we've said, okay, well, keep it dim, but there was nothing to fall back on
Right.
there, so.
And that was one of the things that the planning commission talked about too. We talked about illumination quite a bit. They're looking at increasing dark skies ordinance language,
That's
strengthening.
correct, yes.
So there was a lot of comment about illumination and whether, in particular, the 0.3 foot candles made sense, or if it should be more of a comparison, like no more than 25% brighter than, so.
Yeah, I mean, if all of your neighbors get a sign and then it's brighter, and then your 0.3 foot candles can be even brighter, and then.
Yeah, where do we stop?
That will, yeah, and so maybe there should be a maximum
That's a good point.
on that too. So
Yeah.
0.3 foot candles brighter than, but no brighter than 5,000 nits or whatever
We can cap it.
whatever that was.
So you mentioned bringing in dark sky. Does that mean they'll start looking at cutoffs so it's not shining upward into the sky? I'll let you write that down.
I'm sorry. I'm just like the
writing
other
what you're
gentleman
doing.
couldn't write and talk to you
Yeah.
at the same time. I'm kind of the same way.
Finish writing.
Okay, you said something about directing
Yeah,
light
so
upward.
you
Yeah.
mentioned some of the dark sky initiatives.
Yes.
So I guess would that look into characterizing illuminated signs so that they're not projecting light upward
Yes.
as well? So that needs, that's not in this yet.
No,
Okay. That would be nice.
Very nice.
Sorry, I'm taking over
I
the.
think all the new streetlights are doing that already. Some capacity.
Except the one at my house.
Me too. I still got one of the HPS ones.
Yeah, shining right into my window.
All right, so I would encourage you all to take this home and read it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
write up any comments. You can send them to me, you can send them to Chris, or just call me or call Chris and we'll talk about it and write them down.
Start taking addresses.
If you do, and you know what, that's,
Well,
I was actually gonna suggest, so if you know of signs that you either really like or really can't stand, compare this language to those signs, if you can get, your arms around how big it might be or whatever your
We did
issue might
that
be with it.
6 months ago. You had the app.
We did.
Right.
Did you do it?
I did.
We had such
Couple.
good feedback, and we'll share that with you the next time, probably when we have our public open house.
Yeah.
We'll share that. We had a lot of good feedback.
Yeah. It's just keeping the integrity of the, the original Ann Arbor signs and the new signs that are going up, because they're so much different.
Yeah,
Stadium Hardware, Jack's, like the
Right.
real staples, Izzy's, or not Izzy, all those places. Demos is more what I'm thinking.
yeah, you've got a lot of good signs.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate the time here. Anything else?
Well done.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Where are we now? We're in approval of minutes, aren't we?
Yeah, so one set of minutes went out in advance. The second June set of minutes, you got a first draft of, but then they were ramped up. The third set of minutes you're just looking at now for the first time. So don't feel like you have to approve things that you don't feel like you've had enough time to look at. But, you can take them each separately or all together, or however you would like to talk about them.
All right, let's look at May 10th. May 10th,
Me and Bob got here early.
any comments?
No comment.
I approved May 10th.
No comments from May 10th.
Approved.
June 14th,
I wasn't here.
just said they weren't here on June 14th?
Aye.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Just correct.
I didn't know it
It's
was
accurate in the
scheduled
minutes.
June 7th. I didn't know about
That's right,
that.
it was your birthday, wasn't it?
That's correct.
That's not noted in the minutes.
I know. It's noted in the minds of
In the minds of everyone else.
This was. Got it. The June 14th, I just wanted to make sure that our, I think it was 506 Kingsley? No. 120 North Division Street all came out the way it was supposed to, which it appears it does. Yep.
All right, anything in July?
Okay. No questions. No corrections.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that.
I approve.
Yeah. You're not
Seems
allowed to
good.
miss anymore, man.
Is it really Big Designs, LLC, Chris Figures, page 2, page 3? BIGG?
Yep.
Oh. I did notice tonight that draft design did not put down on all of their pages, they spelled Chelsea incorrectly.
Yeah, I had to do like a triple take on
I was like, that's not right.
I have a question, going back to the June minutes. I just noticed there's a lot of notes on F9, like more than is typical. Is that just happen sometimes on some projects, like more
Yeah,
notes?
so that's
It typically happens on denials,
Okay,
because we like to get more information into the record on why the commission denied the application in
Yeah.
case it's questioned in the future.
right.
Because it's a better way to get information out to people than to necessarily say, oh, you gotta watch the tape.
Yes.
And
Okay.
for approvals, people generally don't care.
Right.
So
Yep.
it's the
Okay.
denials that become a
Thank
problem, yeah. And we don't have to do that, and we don't always do that.
Got it.
But there were two this meeting, so we put it in there for both.
That's right. All right, are there any deletions, additions, or amendments to the minutes? I'm gonna go with, if not, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Right?
Without objection.
Oh, I'm just reading this thing.
You have to do it without objection because nobody made that motion. But that's fine, we'll do it without objection.
Without objection, the minutes have been approved. All right, and then we're on to I, report from commissioners. Does any commissioner have reports to present?
Would that be my
Sure.
time? I am unable to continue as the Cobblestone Farm HDC representative. I've had some scheduling things come up that I will no longer be able to have Monday nights open to help out over there. So the farm is looking for a new representative from the Historic District Commission. Something to think about over the next month. I'm still going to continue to work with them in some degree as volunteer and help when I can, but I won't be able to serve on their board anymore. So think about it, commissioners. Anna?
Think about
And maybe next month we can get somebody back out there for them.
All right, well, thanks for your service
Thank you.
so far.
It was good. It was fun.
We'll have to figure that out next month. Right,
Okay.
so everyone should be here.
Or if anyone would like to just volunteer,
Yes,
let us
that's a
know.
That's
possibility
what. That
as
was
well,
your
yeah.
window. That was everyone's
Window.
window right there.
Anna? Anna.
All right, so we move on to J, assignments. Who is willing to serve on next month's review committee, which will be Monday at 5 on September 10th?
Yep.
I will serve on the September 10th Monday, but that will be likely the last summer review committee I'll be able to attend.
I can only
It's a 5
serve,
o'clock, right?
yeah, I can only serve on it if it's done at 6, before 6.
I doubt that it will be done before 6 because we postponed 2 applications from this meeting, and I'm talking to some other people, so we might have 4 or 5 next month.
Yes, I don't think I can do it.
I can't
Okay. Okay. I don't know
Anyone
if we
else?
can count on Evan at this point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can have me as a maybe.
I'll be there.
I can do it. Okay.
I'll be
we
there.
just got 2.
You
Great.
got 2.
Thank you.
You'll be at his conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to K, reports from staff. Ms. Thatcher.
There's July staff activities in front of you, lots and lots and lots of vents and air conditioning units. And if you have any questions, happy to
garage?
answer them. It wasn't a staff approval, if that's what it says.
It says new freestanding
Oh,
garage.
that was at last month's commission meeting.
Oh, sorry.
One update from a previous meeting from June at 114 North Division, where the parking lot was ordered to be removed. Most of that work has been done, and there's grass in place, and it's got a little bit to go, but it's looking pretty good.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And we're on to concerns of commissioners. Any concerns from commissioners? All right, seeing none, hearing none. On to M, communications. Various communications to the HTC. Do we have them? Oh, we have our Old West Side News. Any others? No. All right, then we're on to adjournment. There being no further business and without objection, I will adjourn the August 16th, 2018 Ann Arbor Historic District meeting.